Hello, are you able to hear me? Hello, are you able to hear me? Yes, I can hear myself now. I can hear myself now. Yes, welcome Sharwani. Yes, welcome Sharwani. Right, I think I am able to hear myself. So on that note, uh, sorry for the delay. Let us now just continue. Are you able to hear me? Okay, so let me just repeat everything from the start since we had this unintended delay. Right. So now let's just start from the beginning. So I'm doing November current affairs. This is the third of the four-part series. So this, of course, is the offer we are currently running. Mantra 45. Once you use this, you get a flat 45% off. Uh, so the format remains the same. Whenever there's a standalone topic, मैं उसको headline में डालता हूँ. Whenever there is specifically about some miscellaneous content, then I put November current affairs. So on that note, I'm beginning. So, first of all, the Prime Minister of India, Sri Narendra Modi, he attended the recent 12th BRICS summit, which was hosted by Russia. Now, what exactly is BRICS? I'll talk about that in some time. But for now, maybe in one of the classes, I'll speak about it. But to quickly wrap it up, what is BRICS? मैं आपको शॉर्ट फॉर्म बताता हूँ फुल फॉर्म बताता हूँ ब्रिक्स इज एक्चुअली शॉर्ट फॉर 5 different countries. So B stands for Brazil, R stands for Russia, I for India, then we have C for China, and we have S for South Africa. South Africa is obviously one country. So these are the 5 countries which make up, right, Sharwani? These are the 5 countries that make up um, the BRICS nations. Right? Some of you might wonder what is the connection between these 5. कहाँ ब्राजील साउथ अमेरिका में, रशिया है यूरेशिया में, चाइना ईस्ट एशिया में, साउथ अफ्रीका तो अफ्रीका में है, इंडिया साउथ एशिया में है. तो इनमें सिमिलैरिटी क्या है? नाउ द सिमिलैरिटी इज दैट इट इज नॉट अ ज्योग्राफिकल यूनिट, it is more of a stage of development. All these 5 are developing countries, but they are fast developing countries. These are among the fastest developing countries on earth, and they're all regional powers. Now within their region, they're the most influential. India for the South Asia region, Russia for Eastern Europe and Central Asia, Brazil for the entire Latin America region, South Africa for the whole of Africa, China, one would like to say East Asia or maybe South China Sea, although nowadays China likes to think of itself as a global power, but at least even if it is or it is not, at least it is a regional power for East Asia. So that is the thing. These are all influential in their own region. These five countries that I have mentioned. I'll give you an example. Do you guys remember where was the 2010 Football World Cup held in? Does anybody remember that 2010 Football World Cup? Okay, so 2010 Football World Cup was held in South Africa. Now, what is the significance of that is that the FIFA, which is the world governing body for football, they decided that the continent, the entire continent of Africa, is football is very popular, but it has never hosted a Football World Cup. So it is time that at least one tournament should be held in. The moment they decided it has to be held in Africa, the obvious choice was South Africa. Not that South Africa has a great football team. No, they did not even make it past the group stage. Ghana reached the quarterfinals. They almost reached the semifinals, but for Luis Suarez, that's a separate story. But the point which I'm trying to say is South Africa has the best infrastructure in Africa, in terms of stadiums, in terms of public transport, hotels, budget hotels, as well as five-star hotels, airports, local travel, so food. So that is why it was held in South Africa, right? So that is the thing about this thing, BRICS. So this year Russia hosted the BRICS summit. This There's no headquarters. So BRICS was founded. मैं जरा लिख देता हूँ आप लोगों के लिए. Um, okay, so I'll just write down the foundation. BRICS founded in 2009 as a BRIC. So it was actually BRIC, and then South Africa joined in 2010. So that's when it became BRICS, right? That's the history of the organization. So there is no headquarters. Unlike the UN, which is headquartered in say New York City, this does not have a headquarter. Instead, there are annual summits which are held in different cities. Now, India hosted in 2017 the BRICS summit in Goa, for instance. This year, 2020, it was hosted by Russia. So Mr. Modi attended that summit. The theme for this year, themes are often asked in exams. Please note them down. Global stability, shared security, and innovative growth. Right? That's the beauty of current affairs classes, the way we flip topics. Now, one of the legends of Indian cinema, he mainly did Bengali cinema, but you could call him a legend for all of India. Soumitra Chatterjee, he passed away. He's won lots of international awards. In fact, I'm sure you've all heard of Satyajit Ray. Have you heard of Satyajit Ray? So if you've heard of Satyajit Ray, he of course was a legendary director. So Satyajit Ray and Soumitra Chatterjee shared that director-actor relationship. So most of Ray's greatest films, Soumitra was the main actor, including the Opoo trilogy, which was such a massive success on the film festival circuit in Europe. He became, I mean, he actually got the Legion of Honor a couple of years back. This is the highest order of merit in France. It is similar to the Bharat Ratna in India, um, right? Similar to the Bharat Ratna, as we call it in India. So that is an award which he received a couple of years back. Also won prestigious awards domestically in India. Moving ahead to some more miscellaneous content. So, sticking with our Prime Minister, Sri Narendra Modi, he unveiled the Statue of Peace. Now, please do not confuse between Statue of Peace and Statue of Unity. Statue of Unity is the highest statue on earth, and that is in Gujarat. This is Statue of Peace. So that is about Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. This is about a Jain monk, a Jainacharya Shri Vijay Vallabh Sureshwar Ji Maharaj. So उनके 151st birth anniversary पे had he been alive, he would have been 151 on this year. So that is why this was commemorated. This was unveiled, this statue. So I wanted to talk about the Nobel Prizes in detail. I'll talk about the Nobel Prizes, but in fact, I did talk about the Nobel Prizes in great detail in the last month, guys. If you may recall the October current affairs, Right now, I can see video across my session, so it's just so I've seen that. Right, so 2020's winner, she's from France, André Ghez. She worked with Indian astronomers. There is this particular telescope which she worked on that is called the 30-meter telescope, which is on Mauna Kea. Mauna Kea, if you measure from below sea level, it is actually one of the highest mountains on Earth. You know, Hawaii is home to some mountains which are taller than the Mount Everest even. So this is located in Hawaii. Hawaii and the country of Chile and South America, they are really popular destinations for a lot of these space exploration telescopes. Right. So as I was saying, I've done a few generic topics. Now I want to talk specifically about the International Children's Peace Prize. What is it all about? So this award this year won by a teenager from Bangladesh. Sharvani, you can also comment anything, any questions you have. If you would like to tell us, do feel free. So there is Sadat Rahman, who's a Bangladeshi teenager. He won the International Children's Peace Prize 2020 for his fight against cyberbullying. Right. Now, cyberbullying, I think you guys are aware, unfortunately, a terrible issue. I hope none of you have ever faced. Cyberbullying, very common because of the anonymity. So, anybody can abuse anybody. And in fact, it's not just kids. Some of the greatest celebrities, some of the best known figures, a lot of film stars, for example, they have received terrible abuse online as well because of the anonymity. So, it's often that people, you have no connect with them, but you know that they can't directly hit you. मैं कुछ भी false ID बना के I can start abusing people, right? So that is where this guy, this is particularly harmful when it affects children. So that's why a minor, so Sadar Rahman, the Bangladeshi teenager, he developed this thing to win the prize. He developed an app called Cyber Teens, which is basically a platform which tracks a lot of these cyber bullies, ones who do trolling of young children. This award was started in 2005 by the Kids Rights Foundation, which is a NGO based in Amsterdam, which is one of the two capitals in the country of the Netherlands. Right, let's continue. So I want to talk about blue energy. A lot of times students or even other professionals, they often mix up blue energy with tidal energy or even with hydroelectricity. So tidal energy, hydroelectricity, you can say blue energy is the best of both these worlds. It's more modern, it's an advanced anything. So let us understand what exactly is it. So हाइड्रो कैसे प्रोड्यूस होता है आपको मालूम है? कोई रिवर पे या बड़े लेक पे आप वाटर, रिवर यूजुअली बिकॉज यू नीड फ्लोइंग वाटर. So there are these turbines which are fitted into water, connected to a dam. तो ये जो पानी है that flows on that turbine and that leads to water being the electricity being generated. So that is the point of hydroelectricity. Tidal energy taps the tidal power from the ocean, so that uses salt water, while hydroelectricity uses fresh water. Blue energy is innovative, it uses a combination of the two. So take a look at this. It uses electrochemistry, so a combination of salt and fresh water being used to power devices. Hydro energy ka limitation hai, you need fresh water. Every country in the world may not have so much of flowing water. Also, ideally, there should be waterfalls. You know, water should move from top to bottom. You know, that is what is even better. You need height. इसपे वो issue है नहीं. Now, the Bardsley Island in Wales, United Kingdom, is set to become the first in the world to be powered entirely. So, there, while blue energy is being used in many parts, this is completely going to be used using blue energy. Funding from this comes from the ERDF, which stands for the European Regional Development Fund. You don't always need to remember all these फंडिंग बॉडीज, बट मैं बस आपको डिटेल में बताता हूँ ताकि जितना आप अब्जॉर्ब कर सके the better. Okay, so the next couple of slides are extremely important, guys. Isko please star mark karna, double star if you want, because this is going to be truly significant. The topics we are now going to do, guys. Please feel free to ask questions. I can see a few people have joined in, so but do make it interactive. That'll be fun. Right. So, what is the Sarna code? Let us understand. सबसे पहले मैं आपको बताता हूँ, आपको मालूम है हर साल, हर 10 साल में इंडिया में सेंसस होता है। पहला सेंसस 19th सेंचुरी में हुआ था। Over a period of time we've had a lot of censuses. The last one was obviously 2011. The next this present one was supposed to be in 2021, but this year it is not going to take place due to the limitations for door to door survey. So the census will now take place next year in 2022, unless again something happens to disturb that. But as of now it is going to be held in 2022. Now in a census, one of the things that needs focus from you guys is one of the topics which is asked in a census is religion. Now religion में क्या क्या categories आप बता सकते हो, right? Religion में in India there are seven things that you can mention, seven religions. So Hinduism, Islam, Christianity, Sikhism, Jainism, Buddhism. These are the six religions which are recognized. And if you are not from one of these six, then what you say is others. Then you come under the others category. There are some Zoroastrians, some Jews, some following various tribal religions. Now the state of Jharkhand, if you, I don't know if you are aware of this, but Jharkhand was created around 20 years back from the old Bihar, and one of the purposes was to strengthen tribal culture, to have a separate tribal entity, tribal unit there. Jharkhand and Chhattisgarh and also Odisha, these are states with large tribal populations. So that is why when Jharkhand was created, because Jharkhand is a there's a large tribal population, there was a demand to protect the traditional tribal culture even more. A lot of tribals do not follow any of these organized religions, if I may use the term. They follow traditional tribal rites and rituals, which are based a lot around nature worship. Yes, a lot of tribes have adopted Hindu customs. Many of them have converted to Christianity. Some have even adopted Buddhism. Yes, that is there. But many of them continue to use their traditional practices. Now, that is where Jharkhand has come up with a new law. The next time we have a census, this is right now only for Jharkhand, but eventually it could also be for the entire country. A lot of the tribal areas, there are tribals, as I said, in nearby Chhattisgarh, West Bengal, Odisha, parts of MP, parts of Bihar, the Gadchiroli district in Maharashtra, and also in all the southern states, and lots in the northeast, of course, in Ladakh, in Sikkim, except, or even in Rajasthan and Gujarat, except for, let's say, Punjab, Haryana, and Uttar Pradesh. You have tribals, some tribal populations everywhere. Right. So Jharkhand passed the Sarna law, Sarna Code. Now tribal people can identify themselves with Sarna as their religion during the next census instead of the usual. I've already informed you what are the usual, and also the fact that most Indian tribals, they identify themselves either as Hindu, Christian, or Buddhist. But from now, at least in Jharkhand, they can also identify themselves with their traditional tribal code. So very important this is. Right, I'll move on to the next slide. The Sarna religion based, as I said, on traditional nature worship. Just to give you a background of the present situation in Jharkhand, the chief minister, some of you might be aware, is Shri Hemant Soren. He's the son of Mr. Shibu Soren, who was actually one of the leading activists, leading leaders in the Jharkhand separation movement, separation as a separate state from Bihar. So his father heads the party Jharkhand Mukti Morcha. Shibu Soren has also been chief minister of Jharkhand. Jharkhand is, as a state, has faced a lot of political uncertainty in terms of lots of times governments have changed. The only government which remained full stable for 5 years was when the BJP was in power, 2014 to 19, under the leadership of Mr. Raghubar Das. He, however, lost. He even lost his own seat, and the BJP also lost the 2019 election quite convincingly to the JMM, Congress, and RJD alliance. So, as I said, they won a landslide election in December 2019. I've made a mistake. 2020. It should be 19, guys. Please make the correction. 2019. This is in alliance with the Congress and the RJD, toppling the then existing BJP government. Just make this correction, please. It's 2019, a few months after the Lok Sabha elections and a few months after the Maharashtra and Haryana elections. I'll talk to you guys about the Bihar elections today. Bihar, of course, neighboring state of Jharkhand. Right. So I had shared this number earlier with you. In fact, this number is present on all our slides. Look at the bottom of the page. We have a board number 965005290 Please use this to avail all kinds of informations. You can call us here, and the counselor will explain to you what are the key terms. Right. So, of course, you can call, but you can also WhatsApp us because many of you are very much comfortable on WhatsApp. So, this is the number 93544999530. So, do feel free to message us here as well. Right. Continuing with more of November current affairs. So there was there was a military exercise. Now this is an exercise which takes place on a regular basis every year since 1992. The Malabar exercise has been held in, but so it used to be a tripartite exercise involving India, Japan, and USA. 1992 till 2019, for 28 years, it was tripartite. But this year, Australia was also invited. So we had all four Quad members this year. So this is another organization you need to worry about. It is Quad. Please, I want you guys to read up further on Quad. Quad is short for quadrilateral. These are four countries, and they have a shared. Shall we say, I wouldn't call it enmity, but a shared um, tension, shared troubles with China. China is, you could say, a common bone of contention for all these four countries. So that is why these four countries have come together in this organization. China calls the Quad as the new NATO, as an Indo-Pacific NATO. So that is rather, it's actually a backhanded compliment because whatever side of the divide you are on, one cannot deny that the NATO was a very strong organization, right? So this exercise generally held in several phases. This year it was two-phase thing. First one was held at the Bay of Bengal, eastern part of India. The second held on the west, in on the Arabian Sea. Meanwhile, the International Space Station, by the way, guys, there is only one International Space Station. People often confuse, they think that there are number of International Space Stations. There is only one, but that space station is divided into zones. So there's an American sphere of influence and there's a Russian sphere of influence. So they've welcomed four additional members with the new SpaceX Dragon capsule, which arrived after a 27-hour voyage. Now, what is interesting, what is important about this is not the fact that four new members came in, वो आते जाते रहते हैं, बड़ी बात नहीं है, but it is the fact about SpaceX. SpaceX is a private organization. Until very recently, all these space missions were conducted by government bodies, but over a period of time, NASA as well as the others realized that there's a lot of cost involved, and of course, it is taxpayers' money. When the government pays, there's a lot of accountability issues as well. So then they started outsourcing it, and SpaceX has filled that void extremely well. SpaceX, I'll just write down a couple of terms. Have you heard of this guy, Elon Musk? I'm sure you guys have heard of him. So he runs three organizations. One is Tesla, two actually, Tesla and SpaceX. Also, former head of PayPal. He's also doing Hyperloop, but that has run into some sort of trouble. His business rival Richard Branson has stolen a march above over him so far. He did have a plan, Elon Musk, in Spain. As of now, it's not looking that great, right? So anyway, but SpaceX is proving to be a great success. They have launched several NASA this thing. They have even launched international ones, non and even military ones. That's amazing because last year they launched SpaceX launched a South Korean military satellite. Of course, Korea is a close ally of the US, so that way there isn't too much of a clash of conflict, but there is still ultimately some military thing. No alliances are permanent, right? Okay. Continuing further, the RBI has set up an innovation hub for the financial sector. It's called the RBIH, stands for the Reserve Bank Innovation Hub. So all kinds of financial innovations will now be tried out by this body. And Mr. Gopala Krishnan, he was once the co-founder of Infosys. He has been named in this group as the chairperson of the governing council for this particular entity. You may write down his name. right? I hope you've gone through. I'm giving you time in between so that you can process and write things down. So, the Election Commission of India, they have appointed Sonu Sood as the state icon of Punjab to, because ethical voting is very important. Voting ke time you need to tell people about mass voting because you need to vote a lot. As many voters as there are, the greater the turnout, the better an indicator of, whoever comes into power. Now, Sonu Sood, he of course is the state icon, and he made a lot of name for himself during the tragic migrant labor crisis. He was the one who facilitated a lot of transport for the migrant workers, and that is why the Election Commission of Punjab has roped him in. The Chief Electoral Officer. So basically, there is a Chief Election Commission of India. Overall, there is a commissioner for India, but you also have Chief Election Commissioners for different states, right? So the national and state elections are conducted by the Election Commission of India, but the local municipal and panchayat elections, they are conducted under the aegis of the state commission. Also, the universities, which are part of the state government, right? So in Punjab, it is Mr. S. Karuna Raju. He is the one who's in charge. Right. So let's continue. Moving on from Punjab to Maharashtra, there is the Parbhani district. इसमें पहला सोलर पावर एनेबल्ड टेक्सटाइल मिल चालू हुआ है. पूरा जो टेक्सटाइल मिल है, टेक्सटाइल्स के लिए महाराष्ट्र इज क्वाइट popular because it is one of the leading producers of cotton and one of the leading industrial cities of India. In fact, Mumbai is often called the Manchester of India, right? So there's a textile mill which is being set up in Parbhani, which is fully solar power enabled. So that is the significance of this. It's known as the Jai Bhavani Women's Cooperative Textile Mill. So completely, the entire staff is female here. Right, let's continue. Due to the weak financials of the Lakshmi Vilas Bank, the RBI has placed this bank under moratorium with immediate effect. Moratorium, matlab this bank was struggling for survival. So now this has been brought under the RBI's aegis. The RBI has even sought a foreign bank to help them out in this situation. There is the DBS. I don't know how many of you have heard of it. The DBS, which stands for Development Bank of Singapore. They are the ones roped in DBS, roped in to rescue Lakshmi Vilas Bank. Right, let's continue. Meanwhile, the city of Aberdeen in Scotland, it's part of the United Kingdom, this city has launched the world's first hydrogen powered double decker buses. It's part of the net zero vision that the city has. Right, because hydrogen is the most abundantly available element in the universe. On Earth, it's nitrogen. Universally, it's hydrogen. Outside once you're in space, it's mostly hydrogen and helium. So it's easily available, and its residue is very less. The byproducts are very less. So that is why it is extremely useful in this usage. So UK is actually doing a lot for hydrogen-based energy. Meanwhile, the Larsen and Toubro company, they've developed the first hardware. It's a booster segment called S200 for Gaganyaan launch vehicle to ISRO. This is ahead of schedule. ISRO, of course, Indian Space Research Organization. गगनयान क्या चीज है थोड़ा सा मैं आपको समझा देता हूँ. Gaganyaan is basically, I'm sure you've all heard of Chandrayaan and Mangalyaan. I'll just write it down on the chat window. Yeah. So Chandrayaan का तो सभी ने सुना है. मंगलयान भी सुना है आपने. Right, you've all heard. Chandrayaan is to reach the moon. Mangalyaan is for this thing, Mars. But these were both unmanned spacecrafts. So we also have something Gaganyaan, that is another very interesting ISRO mission. Gaganyaan is for manned missions. मतलब कि humans will be reaching space. That is the idea behind this. Right? So L&T has got the first consignment, so they have already supplied this to ISRO. Right, as I said, manned missions from India to space. Meanwhile, sticking with science and technology, but instead of space research, I'm now going to talk about um, computers. So Param Siddhi, that's the name of a supercomputer. It is the fastest supercomputer established by India. There used to be Pratyush, which was developed by IIT Madras, but now this is overtaken. It's actually the 63rd fastest supercomputer on Earth, Param Siddhi. It's developed under the NSM, which is the National Supercomputing Mission. The funding has come from this national government scheme. Okay, now video restored again. Right. So India's first project under the newly formed Convergence Energy Services Limited will be set up in Goa. It has been set up by the EESL, which stands for Energy Efficiency Services Limited. So there is this new scheme which is coming up that will ensure that the energy consumption is more efficient. It is less wasteful and less toxic. Goa, of course, is a state which has seen a lot of environmental pollution thanks to a lot of the mining which took place, sand mining, from the seashore. There was otherwise there's iron ore mining, as I think bauxite or aluminium as well. Sesa Goa is a very big mining company, part of the Vedanta group. So these are, of course, we can't stop mining. That's essential for development. But at the same time, we need to make it more efficient, which is why this project has been put in place. Right. Meanwhile, to increase the cooperation levels between India and Australia, so that there's greater cooperation in civil space activities, the space agencies of India, which is ISRO, and Australia, they've started working together to position temporarily Indian tracking facilities. Right. This is something which will also help in trade because obviously India and Australia, the entire trade almost is maritime. I mean, very less could be by planes. Obviously, it can't be by road because Australia is an island nation far away from India, thousands of miles away. So most of it takes place maritime. Maritime, you often have losses of, in terms of energy, in terms of travel and time consuming, but you could also have cases of piracy. So उन सबको handle करने के लिए this can be a very good method. Right, now moving on to the November current affairs for the miscellaneous stuff. Right, so the Japanese Prime Minister, Mr. Yoshihide Suga, and his Australian counterpart, Mr. Scott Morrison, they've signed a landmark defense deal in a bid to counter China's growing influence in the South China Sea and over the Pacific Island nations. Right? So Yoshihide Suga, he became the prime minister last year. Remember, Japan does not have a president. It is like the UK, like Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Denmark, lots of European countries. Japan is also a constitutional monarchy. They do have a monarch, but the monarch does not have the real legislative powers. That lies in the hands of the prime minister who's elected by the people. So Shinzo Abe was prime minister for a long time of Japan. He was seen as a close ally of India, but he stepped down due to some health concerns he had. So Yoshihide Suga, who was a long-term aide of Mr. Abe, he stepped up as the new Prime Minister. His Australian counterpart, Scott Morrison, they have signed a defense deal. I was telling about Quad. So among the four members of Quad, you have a lot of intra deals as well among the four of them. This is to ensure that Chinese influence on the South China Sea and over the Pacific Islands does not, grow further. They already have a lot of clout, and is not good for the peace of this region. And of course, they've had a lot of conflicts. We are not the only country with which China has had a territorial dispute. They've had disputes with Vietnam, Philippines, Brunei, Malaysia, Japan, South Korea, even Australia, which is so far away. Not exactly a territorial dispute. So what happened is, I'll tell you the story. Last year, एक Australian military ship था, which was doing a general reconnaissance travel. So they docked at a point on Vietnam waters. They took permission from Vietnam. China says this is our waters. You didn't take permission from us. Australia got very angry that this is Vietnam waters. How can you say? So in fact, Australia and China, they had a massive trade war last year. Australia stopped getting stuff from China, which practically is very difficult because over the last couple of decades, the world economy has moved in such a way that China has become the manufacturing hub. So now there are some countries which are actually replacing China, or at least trying to take in a portion of that manufacturing largest. Bangladesh is one of them. Vietnam is another. Philippines has tried its luck. So there are countries which are trying to fill this void where China is so dominant. Meanwhile, the prime ministers of India and Bhutan's prime minister, his name is Mr. Lotai Shering. Bhutan is something in between a constitutional and an absolute monarchy. The king still has powers. The king is mostly powerful, but even the elected prime minister does have a lot of power. So it's a sort of mixed system between the British model and the Saudi model. So they've launched the RuPay card, phase two. RuPay is basically an Indian rupee denominated card. Just like we have Visa and Mastercard. Similarly, we have RuPay card, which is denominated in terms of Indian rupees. I'll just write it down. RuPay is a card denominated in Indian rupee. Right, that's the significance. Right. So once you are using RuPay card, any country that accepts RuPay, like the United Kingdom was one of the first major countries to accept it. In the UK, if you are carrying your RuPay card, you don't need to convert your currency. So RuPay card apne dala and it converts into the local currency on a real time basis. Whereas otherwise you'll have to convert before you reach a foreign country. In this case, तब जो भी real value होगा उसके हिसाब से that could be beneficial to you on certain occasions. It might as well hurt us, and the chance of hurting is actually more, but yes, it can also benefit us immensely. But it's good that there is a handle in India. Otherwise, Visa and Mastercard, they're American handles. They handle billions of transactions probably every minute, probably every hour. So that is why there was an alternative needed. So that is where we came up with this. I've told you the importance of matrices and a lot of these essay writing competitions that you have in after the entrances in many colleges. That's where if you use indexes, that is a very good method of proving your point, right? So there is the bribery risk matrix. It measures business bribery risk in 194 countries, right? India's rank is 77th. Rank 1 is Denmark. So this is bribery risk, मतलब कितना chance है bribery होने का. So India का rank is not actually that bad. I mean, we are above half, so it's pretty okay. If you see that there are so many developed countries which make up the first 30, 35 countries, right? So Denmark, as usual, they do very well across indexes, and they've done extremely well here as well. North Korea is right at the bottom of this index. You also need to know the body which develops the index. So in this case, it is Trace. So when it is a body which is more credible, like in this case, that's when there is a lot of importance which is accorded to that index. Right. So I now want to talk about this thing called the Five Eyes Alliance. Again, very important. And I would like to say that if any of you has read spy novels or you've seen spy movies like Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy or even Spy, there was a web series, Israeli web series, brilliant series. So if you watched any of these, then definitely this is something which is going to interest you. So, Five Eyes Alliance was actually an alliance which was created during the Second World War. There are five English-speaking countries which need to cooperate on this, on signals intelligence, the kind of signals that you receive, uske intelligence pe. Uh, so I don't know, somehow the slides changed. But anyway, so these are the members. As I said, they're English speaking countries. So it's easy for you to guess USA, UK, Australia, Canada, and New Zealand, the five major English speaking nations. There are other English speaking nations, but these are the five biggest and most important ones. The likes of France, Israel, Singapore, Japan, and South Korea, they have also often attended meetings. Germany as well. It's often called a 5+1. So if France attends, we call it 5+1. If Israel, then 5+1 again. These five are the permanent members. You have some of the other countries which have occasionally joined in. Right? I'm constantly seeing for comments. So if you have any questions, do feel free to ask. Okay, so now we want to move into Sandbox. What is Sandbox? Let us understand. So the Reserve Bank of India, they have announced the names of two startups that have been selected as a part of its regulatory sandbox program. ठीक है क्या है ये सैंडबॉक्स प्रोग्राम थोड़ा सा समझते हैं there is a Jaipur based natural support consultancy services. The other is from New Delhi, which is called the Nuclear Software Exports Limited. It's part of the program. So RBI अभी क्या करेगा वो अब से periodically startups को adopt करेगा, literally adopt, and it is going to provide them services in terms of funding help, also in terms of consultancy, because obviously startups they require consultancy, they require the brain power of experts who've been there and done it. So that is why this has been started, right? So this is actually my last slide of the day. Don't get too excited. Last slide of the day before I talk about one major topic, which is the Bihar election. So I've left some space open for the Bihar elections, जिस पे मैं अलग से बात करूंगा. Because this was a very big election, the first state election after the COVID-19 pandemic took place. So a lot of there were some restrictions, not sure how much they work, but yes, there were some restrictions which were made on crowd gathering and on distancing, social distancing, masking. Some of these requirements were put in place. Right now, of course, we are having five big state elections, so we'll talk about those state elections as well. Right. So, before I get into the insights, the nitty-gritties of 2020 elections, I'll give you an overall picture about the political scenario in Bihar. So, Bihar, of course, Bihar is one of the few states remaining where you have two houses. So, if you look at the Indian constitution, the way it is designed, the Indian political system, at the center we have two houses, the Rajya Sabha, which is the upper house, and we have the Lok Sabha, which is the lower house. Lok Sabha is where the members are directly elected by people, by you and me. Maybe not you, many of you watching this session might be less than 18, but by adults. Your parents would be voting, your elder brother, sister would be voting, right? So, that is the Lok Sabha. Rajya Sabha, the members are elected indirectly by the states, by those represented at the states. They represent they send their members to the Rajya Sabha. It's a Sabha of Rajyas. Rajyas are states. All the states that we have in India and a few union territories where elections are held, like Delhi and Puducherry, in states में क्या है? you have an option of having either a bicameral structure or a unicameral structure. So initially, a lot of states had a bicameral structure, but by now you only have five remaining ones, and Bihar is one of them. Uttar Pradesh is another. There's Telangana, there's Maharashtra. Andhra Pradesh used to have, Andhra Pradesh does have one right now, but it has already decided to abolish it. So this present legislative council, it will run its course. Once it is over, then there will be no more fresh additions to it. Karnataka as well has. Jammu and Kashmir had, but J&K is no longer a state, so it does not have two houses anymore, right? So Bihar's state assembly has a total legislative assembly is called Vidhan Sabha in Hindi. A total 243 seats are there in Bihar. So as you can understand, 243 seats होंगे मतलब 122 is the majority mark. As I said, it's a bicameral structure. There is also the presence of the Legislative Council or the Vidhan Parishad. The previous elections in 2015, Bihar has had very stable politics in the sense that every government which has been appointed, I can at least think of 1990, I'm not sure before that, but since 1990, every government has completed its full 5 year term. Often the chief ministers have changed in between, like Mr. Lalu Prasad Yadav once went to prison, so his wife, Srimati Rabri Devi, she was chief minister for a while. Later on, Nitish Kumar had a time when he stepped down, so there was Jitan Ram Manjhi who replaced him. So there have been these few short-term changes, but generally governments have continued. So this election held over three phases, just like Assam was held over three phases. I think Tamil Nadu as well. Bihar was also held over three phases because it's a big state, so you need a lot of time. Now थोड़ा सा मैं background देता हूँ from the last two elections. Last two as in 2015 state elections. उसके पहले का ज्यादा relevant नहीं होगा. 2015 की बात करते हैं और 2019 में जब पिछला स्टेट इलेक्शन नेशनल इलेक्शन हुआ था. आई नो द लोकसभा एंड स्टेट इलेक्शंस आर वेरी डिफरेंट, but there is some resemblance as well. So let us look at the trends from the last two of them. 2015 में the RJD, which is a regional party, very big party from Bihar, also the JDU, which is a regional party. So RJD and JDU have been long-term rivals, enemies, you could say. But in 2015, thanks to the massive power of the BJP in the national elections, that is why these two decided to come together. Also, the Congress. So the three of them they fought together and they won a landslide election against the might of the BJP. But in 2017, the alliance changed again. So in 2015, the RJD won 80 seats, the JDU 71, and the Congress 27. So a huge majority, 178 out of 243. The BJP had 53, its allies had another 5, 6. A few were won by others. I think the CPIML won 3, right? But in 2017, a year and a half into this government fell. When I'm saying government fell, it was not a case of instability, but the JDU changed its alliance. It went back to its old friend, the BJP. So JDU and BJP had been in alliance for 10 years, 2005 to 15. And now the JDU returned back to. So as I said, BJP had 53, its allies had 5 or 6 seats, plus the 71 of JDU meant that they crossed the 122 mark quite easily. It wasn't that easy, but yes, fairly comfortably, right? Shri Nitish Kumar has remained CM. I'm saying almost because there was a period for a couple of months when Mr. Jitan Ram Manjhi was the CM, but otherwise he's been. This is he's completed three consecutive terms till 2020. He had also been the rail minister before that for a while during the Vajpayee government. Now moving to 2019, this here the trend changed completely from 2015. The BJP-led NDA winning 39 out of 40 seats. That was landslide. BJP itself contested on 17 seats, won all of them. The JDU won 16 of the 17. The Lok Janshakti Party, its third ally, won all six it contested on. So it was a no-brainer. In fact, the RJD was reduced to zero. The Congress won a single seat. The left and the other parties also had none. However, we've seen election after election that there's a difference in the voting pattern between the national and the state election. So same thing happened again in Bihar this time as well. So, but before that, let us look into some of the key alliances that were formed prior to the elections. Yes, yes, Harendra, good afternoon. What do you want to know about Jharkhand Assembly? Jharkhand has a total of 81 seats. I'll just let you know. Jharkhand total 81 seats. ठीक है, JMM plus Congress plus RJD have around 50 seats. So during the election, they won around 47, 48. Then there's a party called JVM, Jharkhand Vikas Morcha. That party actually merged with the BJP, but two of its three MLAs shifted to the Congress. Also, there is NCP has one seat. The CPIML has one seat. They are sort of friendly parties to the JMM. So that is why they have a little over 50. In fact, their strength is very strong right now, this alliance. The BJP won around 24, if I remember. And of course, they gained one because of the merger with JVM. They have around 25 odd right now. ठीक है, Harindra, anything else you wish to know, please let me know. Right. So let us understand what are the key alliances. I'll also look at, I need to keep looking at questions frequently because we do get these comments. I need to answer them immediately, right? So one was the NDA, there was the MGB, which is the Mahagathbandhan. NDA is a national alliance. So Lok Janshakti Party is the BJP ally at the center, but in the state election they decided to contest separately. The LJP, they had an agenda which was anti the JDU. So they decided to contest on all the seats where the JDU put up candidates, but did not put up candidates where the BJP put up candidates. So basically, how an alliance works is a pre-poll alliance. Let's say you and I are an ally. So if there are total 100 seats, I contest on 50, you contest on 50, or I contest on 30, you contest on 70, you more powerful. But in your seats, I do not put up my candidates. कभी कभी हो जाता, there are some friendly contests which do happen, but generally speaking the idea is that in an alliance you share the seats, so that my voters can also vote for yours. Our voters do not cross each other, right? That benefits the third party in the first past the post system that the Indian democracy is called. Right. So we have the MGP, which is the Mahagathbandhan, and we had a few others as well. So NDA constituents कौन-कौन थे? BJP, of course, the JDU. These are the two big ones. There's also two smaller parties, the HUM and the VIP. HUM stands for the Hindustan Awam Morcha, and VIP is Vikashsheel Insan Party. HUM. So there was Jitan Ram Manji, who was earlier with the JDU. He changed his party, he formed his own outfit, which is the HUM, while a former Bollywood professional, Mr. Mukesh Sahni, he formed the VIP. Both HUM and VIP had been RJD allies during the Lok Sabha elections, but they shifted their alliance for the state elections. Then we have the Mahagathbandhan, that has the RJD, of course, the biggest of the parties. They contested on the maximum seats among all the parties. There's the Congress, of course, which nationally is the biggest among these. You also have the three left parties, the CPI, the CPIM, and the CPIML. CPIML most powerful of the three in Bihar, although nationally the CPIM is more powerful. They're in power in Kerala, for instance. Yeah, right. So these were the alliances. This was this thing. There was a few other alliances as well. Some of the other parties which contested. The LJP, I've told you, we have the Rashtriya Lok Samta Party, which by now has merged with the JDU. There's also AIMIM, which is originally from Hyderabad, but they're now expanding all over India, led by Mr. Asaduddin Owaisi. There's the JAPAL formed by Mr. Pappu Yadav. The BSP is a fairly big national party, and there's also the ASP, which was created by Mr. Chandrasekhar Azad. So these were some of the key belligerents. The final results, let's take a look. The NDA won a slender majority. 122 is the majority mark. They won 125. It was a nail-biting contest. The whole day of the counting was actually very close. There are expectations that Assam and West Bengal and even Kerala, maybe even Puducherry this time would be like that. Tamil Nadu, there's a feeling that one side will win by a big margin, right? So the BJP emerged as the single largest party within the NDA. In fact, the BJP had the highest strike rate among all the major parties in the whole state, winning 74 out of only 100 seats, 10 seats they contested. So that's almost a 67% strike rate, which is pretty much exceptional. The JDU won 43 out of 115. The VIP and HUM won 4 each. They contributed to 4 each. Mr. Nitish Kumar sworn in for the fourth consecutive term. The MGB or the Mahagathbandhan finished a close second with 110. The RJD emerged as the single biggest party in the state, winning 75. So actually, RJD's, although the strike rate was lower than the BJP's at around 50 through 53, 54%. But the number of seats they won, absolute numbers, is one more than the BJP 74. And finally, continuing with it, the Congress won only 19. The left parties, they contested only 29, so they won 16. Even they had a very good strike rate. The CPIML winning 11 of them, CPIM 3, CPI only 2. The LJP and the BSP also won only a single seat each, while Japal and RLSP failed to open their account. The AIMM was the surprise package, winning 5, all in the Simanchal region. Simanchal is in the eastern part of Bihar, bordering West Bengal. Right? There was also an independent candidate who won from his seat. Independents are people who do not fight under a party banner. Nirdali जिन्हें बोलते हैं हम. Right. Once again, my video seems to be disappearing. There is some issue with my video, it seems. I hope at least my audio is audible. Right. I think the audio is doing fine. Right. So that is pretty much it. I'm done with today's class. A long one. I discussed the November current affairs. Tomorrow I'm finishing the November current affairs. Next week I'll do some of the older months like August and September, and I will also do, shall we say, I'll take a session on the upcoming state elections and what are the key parties in it. Right. So when we talk politics, we do not take sides. We are just giving information. Please understand this is called data, and you should stick to that because in exams you get questions, you don't get opinions, right? Fair enough. Okay, so I'm done with it. But once again, to remind you, this is our board number, as you can see at the bottom, 96500529004. We are running a BBN HM batch, a crash course. These are our trainers, Ashutosh and Rabia. Um, so, you know, these are the enrollments. For any course related queries, please call at these numbers. I've shared with you one. The other one is 93195999244. So you may message us or call us on any of these two numbers. Right. This is our tagline. Sahi prep hai to life set hai. So do subscribe to our YouTube channel. I think some of you did watch this session on YouTube, but please press the bell icon so that you get good enough information to get notification for all videos. Right. We also have a Telegram channel. Don't forget to join this. जिसमें बीबीए और होटल मैनेजमेंट के डिस्कशंस कॉन्स्टेंटली गोइंग ऑन. ये नीचे के जो मैंने शेयर किया है, दिस इज नो लॉन्गर रेलेवेंट. ये होली के टाइम ऑफर था. अभी आप उस 45% पे ध्यान दीजिए इंस्टेड ऑफ द 30+40. राइट. आपको मालूम है सही प्रेप है तो लाइफ सेट है. तो प्रैक्टिस टॉपिक वाइज क्विजेस आप प्रैक्टिस कर सकते हैं. हमारा ऐप है इस पे, गूगल प्ले पे, तो उसको डाउनलोड कीजिए आप लोग. Yes, Prathiva, good to see your question. It is not that important, I'll be very honest. Not that important, but you need to know, major aspect. Need to know major aspects. So my classes are exhaustive. I try to cover everything which is relevant for your exams. Some of it might be a little over the this thing information, but you can at least listen to all of it. जहां जहां कुछ स्पेसिफिकली इंपॉर्टेंट है प्रतिभा, मैं वहां पे इन्फॉर्म कर देता हूँ आप लोगों को. ठीक है हरेंद्र, प्रतिभा, इफ एनीबडी हैज एनी मोर क्वेश्चंस डू लेट मी नो. ठीक है प्रतिभा, मैंने आपका क्वेश्चन थोड़ा लेट देखा, बट देन आई कैनॉट कीप शिफ्टिंग टू द ऐप. मुझे ये भी रन करना है. So anyway, once you've downloaded the app, you can practice topic wise quizzes and of course keep attending the live classes. I'm keeping the session open for a couple of minutes. uh, Right, Pratibha. I'll just keep it open for some time. Do let me know if there are any more questions, Pratibha. Right, let me see if there are any more questions. Okay, fair enough. I can't see any more. So let us wrap it up for the day. Thank you so much. Wonderful interacting with you all. Now, there's another session I'm taking in about an hour's time, about 45 minutes this time. It will start at 1 p.m. I'm going to take a generic session on career options for PCB students. Right, yesterday we did for PCM students. Today I'm going to do for the PCB students. So, see you at 1 p.m. and also see you tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm taking some more of these sessions. I'm finishing November current affairs at 11 a.m. and then at 1 p.m. I'll take another generic session. Tomorrow is specifically on hotel management students. I'll be talking about service aptitude, how to do well in service aptitude. Right. So till then, thank you so much, guys. Wonderful interacting with all of you.